Hey, do you feel that you're working in a toxic work environment? Well, then you're gonna find this video highly beneficial. Stick around till the end, we have some practical tips on how to deal with the situation as well. It's helpful to remember that companies don't always practice what they preach. In my previous job, the engineering consulting firm I worked for professed to believe in values like integrity, honor, and respect, and had it written in their manifesto. It's only when push comes to shove that they show you what they're really all about. I've had first-hand experience of working in a toxic work environment. It all began when I was assigned a new greenfield project, working for a small team consisting of 3 senior engineers and myself, a junior engineer. I worked directly under a senior engineer, whom we will call Mr. C for the purposes of this video. Mr. C was of Eastern European descent, and he had a thick accent as well. He was probably one of the most difficult individuals that I've ever had to deal with in my life. He was just really rough around the edges, had a huge ego, and was just downright mean for no reason. My interactions with Mr. C began as okay, but only went downhill from there. Anytime I asked Mr. C a question, he would be super annoyed with me. His tone of voice would always be condescending, and even when he did explain things, it wasn't always clear and straightforward. I mean, English was his second language. Whenever I would complete a task and it wasn't to his liking, he would always make it a point how stupid I was to not get it right, and how I didn't belong in the company, and so on. Sometimes he would take jabs at me during the project meetings, totally unprovoked. And his attitude was much worse during one-on-one meetings versus a team setting. And it would be one thing if this was just happening to me, but he was acting this way towards other senior engineers in our team as well. If you're experiencing bullying or harassment of any kind, you're working in a toxic work environment. Eventually, I was forced to take it up with my manager, and it was bizarre to me that my manager would acknowledge that Mr. C is an abrasive individual and other colleagues have had issues with him in the past. That's just the way he is. So this was very much a pattern with Mr. C, which was a sign that it wasn't me that was causing this. The manager then said that the workload is extremely high at this point, and there aren't any senior engineers available at this time who are qualified to take his position, which, as we learned later, was a load of baloney. The manager essentially said that his hands were tied and there was nothing he could do about it. This is a second sign that you're working in a toxic work environment. If bad behavior, especially from senior individuals, is going unpunished, guess what? You embolden bad behavior by letting it go unpunished. At this point, I had 2 choices. I could either leave or stay and work on the project. And I chose to stick around because I was told that this was a great opportunity for me and that I would gain exposure later on in the project when they send me to a project site for the execution and commissioning phase of the project. As much as I disliked working with Mr. C, I sucked it up and stayed. If your manager is setting you up for failure, that's emblematic of a toxic work environment. One thing I did start doing from that point onwards is to stand my ground. Whenever Mr. C hurled insults at me, I would respond back in kind and talk smack to his face back. Then Mr. C changed his tactics towards me. He tried to sideline me from the project by not CCing me on important project updates. And there were occasions when he cancelled project meetings as well, calling it a waste of his time. If you're experiencing microaggressions day in, day out, that's a clear sign you're working in a toxic work environment. Things went on like this for about a year. Then, as I was promised, I was sent to a client site for the project, and by this time 3 new members had joined our team as well. It was a great experience. I got to see everything that I designed sitting in the office in real life. But Mr. C, though, he was still in the picture. But he wasn't there physically. He was mostly assisting us remotely, and he was working with the other individuals on our team for the most part. One of the new members would constantly butt heads with Mr. C, and unbeknownst to us, this new member prepared an entire report highlighting all the safety hazards that are present in the software that Mr. C had written. If there's a lack of regard for work safety, you're likely working in a toxic work environment. Once this new member submitted the report, sure enough, after a few days, Mr. C was fired from our company, and everyone celebrated. Here's some practical advice that I want to leave you with. The management will only take action when it impacts the quality of their work to the dissatisfaction of their clients. When the bottom line is affected, or when the business is directly under threat, that's the only time they'll take action. Your managers and colleagues are mostly interested in climbing up the corporate ladder, looking good in front of their bosses, and have very little genuine care or interest in your day-to-day issues that you might be encountering. You need to engage an independent third party like the HR, who have no conflict in interest in dealing with the conflict. In hindsight, you as an individual should have zero tolerance for abuse of any kind at work. Don't put up with it as I did for a long time. Immediately report any incidents to your manager and flag the HR, because even if nothing comes of it, at least they have it on record for potential use in the future. Always be willing to part ways with your company. Have your resume ready to go, because then you have the leverage. Plus, it's better to change your company sooner rather than later if you're looking for better pay and title. If you found that video helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Catch you later.